What's up, Packer fans? Welcome to this brand new edition of the Pack a Day podcast here on YouTube. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can always follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Going to be going over my grades for the defense this past week. I thought it was their best performance of the season by far. Certainly had some really high grades to give out to a handful of different players. I'll get to that in just a moment. But before I jump into that, want to go over the play of A.J. Dillon. Now, I haven't broke down the offensive grades yet. I'm really excited to do that. I'll certainly be doing that for tomorrow's show. But there's been a lot of talk today about whether or not, A.J. Dillon should start getting more carries, what that means for Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones and going forward. And I'm not going to, jump too far ahead today and start looking ahead to next season and what it could mean for Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, although a great performance by A.J. Dillon is certainly something that's going to raise some eyebrows and certainly gain the trust of Matt LaFleur and potentially Brian Gutekunst in that front office. But I'm not ready to jump to any conclusions there yet. But I do think that performance from A.J. Dillon was noteworthy enough to say we've got to find a way to get him some touches and involved, even if Jamal and Aaron are completely healthy. And I get it's really tough to take those guys off the field, and I don't think you want to just tip your hand and say, you know what, we want A.J. Dillon on the field and it's going to be a run play. Like, he has to be well versed in blitz pickups and all of the different functions of the passing offense and everything like that. So there's all of that goes into it, but that type of performance in December at Lambeau Field, this is exactly what everyone talked about when the Packers drafted A.J. Dillon of, he's your closer. He's your guy that comes in late in the game or even just in December football, Lambeau Field or Soldier Field this coming week and just grinds away teams. And listen, if there's been one issue for the Packers offense so far this season, at times it's been just putting teams away and continuing to grind the clock and score points and make sure that the opposing team doesn't get back into it and giving your defense some rest. There's no better player on this Packers roster that's set up for that than A.J. Dillon. And I think we got a sneak peek of exactly what he's capable of. There was some prime Eddie Lacy in that, where if you remember back, the crowd at Lambeau Field cheering Eddie, Eddie, and everyone in that stadium just wanting them to hand the ball off to Eddie Lacy. Aaron Rodgers was still the quarterback, but people wanted Eddie Lacy to get the football because he was just in one of those zones, handing off. The other team was making some business decisions, not wanting to make tackles. And A.J. Dillon is a more athletic version of that. And I don't know how you can look at that game from Sunday and not be excited. And I know there have been a lot of people in my mentions saying, you know what, it's just one game. Let's not get out of control. And to an extent, I get that. But this is what we saw out of A.J. Dillon at Boston College. This is what we've seen in glimpses. Hell, he got one carry against Carolina, took it 19 yards in a very similar type of run. He puts up, 120 plus in a touchdown in his first game over 5 carries in his career in the NFL. Jamal Williams does not have a single game with that level of yardage that what A.J. Dillon did this past week in his entire Packers career. He just doesn't. He's done it both receiving and rushing combined, but on the ground, he doesn't have a game over 120 yards rushing in his Packers career. In his career, he only has 3 games with over 20 carries, if I remember correctly, in his career with Green Bay. They gave that to A.J. Dillon, this past week, and he made the most of it. And let's not kid ourselves here. Aaron Jones is the 1A running back on this team. He is the alpha. He is the person who should be in the game most often. I know people get upset when it's down in the 1 yard line. Let's not forget, Aaron Jones led the league in touchdowns a season ago and is one of the most prolific scoring running backs over the course of the last couple seasons. There's no reason not to give him the ball at the 1 yard line, A.J. Dillon or not. He's the guy that you want with the ball at the goal line and really in almost any situation. So let's set that aside first and foremost. Aaron Jones is the guy. He is running back number 1. And Jamal Williams is going to be that all-around guy, right? He's going to be the guy that you trust in pass protection. He's going to be the guy that can receive it out of the backfield, that can be a solid running back, but he's never going to be your dynamic runner. Although he has looked a little bit more prolific this season in limited carries and limited action, he's still not going to be that game-breaking type of running back for you. And now you've got your closer, your power back, your grinder, that type of back in A.J. Dillon. And I do think in a team that's, really specializes their players and finds roles for each of their players, it is time to find a specific role for A.J. Dillon and try to get him some carries. And I asked Matt LaFleur on Monday, I said, I know this is a good problem to have, but does it make it difficult, to really get all these guys touches, and how are the players responding to that? Because let's look at last week, right? Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, Devontae Adams, they all get a ton of touches in that game, double-digit touches. Allen Lazard, 2 catches, right? Two targets. I think Robert Tonyan, 2 targets. MVS, 0 targets. Tavon Austin got a couple targets. Dominique Daphne got a target. And even in this game, and Mercedes Lewis didn't have a target. Even in this game, it's tough to spread the wealth amongst everyone in the game and on offense. And at some point, Jamal Williams is coming back. Jay Sternberger may come back. Tyler Ervin may come back. That's a lot of mouths to feed. Equanimeous St. Brown got in one play. He scores one target. He scores a touchdown. There's a lot of mouths to feed on this offense. And Matt LaFleur was brilliant in answering it. And he basically said, how much they celebrate as a team, the blocking by MVS on the outside, digging out the safety by Allen Lazard to set up some of those big runs by Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. You can tell that this team is bought in to everything that Matt LaFleur is saying, and they go above and beyond to celebrate those victories that aren't just the 100-yard rushing games, the 100-yard receiving games. Like MVS is shown on tape to the rest of the team for his work, run blocking for Aaron Jones or blocking for some of those quick receiver screens to Devontae Adams. Devontae's getting the credit, but guys like Allen Lazard, MVS, they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Mercedes Lewis is a guy that's doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but as time goes on and you have this full functioning offense with all these different weapons, it's going to be hard to feed everyone. So that being said, I go back to my original point. I do believe that it's time to get A.J. Dillon a specific role within this offense, and I think the future is very, very bright for Dillon, and I think we got a glimpse of that this past Sunday. All right, let's go over my defensive grades. First and foremost, I've said for some time now that the defense revolves around Kenny Clark. Zadarius Smith, Jair Alexander, you can make arguments that both of them may be better overall players than Kenny Clark, but Kenny Clark is the center of the Packers defense and everything revolves around it. If he can shut down the center of that defensive line or offensive line, however you want to look at it, and he can be the guy, the glue guy in the middle of that defense, everything revolves around that, because now we see edge rushers who can funnel everything back inside, back into Kenny Clark. It makes life easier for the edge players, especially on passing situations where Kenny's collapsing the pocket. That makes Zadarius and Preston and Rashawn Gary, their jobs that much easier, because when they come screaming off the edge, now the quarterback can't just step into the pocket because Kenny Clark's waiting there. So it makes it easier in passing situations. It makes it easier in running situations. When he is dominant, that's when this defense is at its best. Zadarius and Jair and some of these players, they might be better. They might make more splash plays, but this defense revolves around Kenny Clark. And when Mike Pettin wants to play some of these light nickel and dime defenses, you better as hell have a player in the center of that defense that's able to eat blocks and make sure that those guards and centers aren't getting to the second level, or somebody that's disrupting the level of play. That's what Kenny Clark can do. And over the course of the beginning of the season, he was banged up. He didn't play at that high level. These last few weeks, he has been outstanding. He was my highest graded player this week, and it just sets up the rest of the defense for insane, tremendous success. And that's, to me, that is one of the key switches that's been flipped over the course of the last couple of weeks where we've seen this defense step up. It is the play of Kenny Clark and everyone else responding around it, because again, he's the center of that Mike Pettin Packers defense as well. He should be. He's that talented of a player. Now we're starting to see those results because he's playing at a very, very high level. Huge game this week, was constantly displacing the offensive line, getting into the backfield, making plays, getting pressures. Just again, a fantastic game overall from Kenny Clark. Number 2, the other player that's brought this defense up with his recent play, Darnell Savage. And these two things have really happened at the same time, and now we're starting to see, and I think we really saw it on display against Tennessee, what this defense can do when Kenny Clark is playing really great on the front end. Darnell Savage is playing great on the back end. You've got playmakers, you've got disruptors, and Darnell Savage was a disruptor in this game. He had, the pass breakup on the opening drive, the blitz on the opening drive. He basically, wrecked the Titans' offensive game plan on that drive. Had the interception later, made a couple key tackles on Derrick Henry, was aggressive in attacking gaps and making sure that his gap was filled in run defense. Almost had a pick six later in the game, had a near either pass breakup or potential pick six. It was just a hair off on the opening drive as well. He is flying around to the football, and he is playing fast. He's always been fast. He's now playing fast. His instincts are starting to take over. There's still some situations where he's the robber in the defense, where he's kind of reading things and trying to figure out and not letting his instincts take over, But I love the way that he is playing this last month. And I think, again, I've said that the safeties have been the strength of this defense. That was once again the case this week. Amos would like a couple of plays back, but overall, safeties have been really, really good as of late. And then number 3 on my list was Rashawn Gary. Really nice game. He set up, the interception by Darnell Savage, actually had the pressure later on the near pick by Darnell Savage, set a strong edge in the run game, came up with consistent pressure throughout the course of the game. He was really a key disruptor for this Packers defense. The Titans really did a very poor job in trying to stop him. I think this was the most complete game that we've seen so far from Rashawn Gary. We've seen flashier plays. We've seen better results at times, but this was the most consistent game, in my opinion, from beginning to end, both as a run defender, as a pass rusher, all of it combined. He even dropped into coverage on one play. There's one play where he comes looping off the edge, and then Ryan Tannehill steps up in the pocket. There's like an entire group of offensive linemen, defensive linemen, bunched up. He circles around that entire group, comes back around and makes the tackle on Ryan Tannehill. Just ridiculous effort level plays. And again, a huge game for Rashawn Gary. Also honorable mentions to Preston Smith and Jair Alexander. Preston's playing some really good football lately. He had a pressure on the Christian Kirksey interception. He had a batted pass. He was all over the place in this game. Dropped back into coverage with some level of success. Just another really complete game from Preston Smith, who's also been playing better as of late. And then, oh, by the way, Jair Alexander still really good at football. A couple pass breakups in some key situations, and really like this game from him as well. Brian Price, just a small shout out, only played, I think, less than 10 snaps in this game. Had 3 or 4 really nice snaps in this game where he was able to get some pressure, get some penetration into the backfield. Not sure what to make of that. It's an insanely small sample size, but he definitely caught my eye a little bit in this game. If you have a chance, go back and watch his 10 or so plays, and it was pretty fun to see what he was doing out there. I'm intrigued to see if he gets some additional playing time or bumped up to the active roster in the coming weeks. All right. On the flip side, there's always got to be 3 players that are, on the opposite end of the spectrum. I thought Kingsley Keke had the worst day of the defensive line. Not egregious, but certainly, in comparison to Lancaster, Lowry, and, Brian Price even, and the rest of that group, I thought he got pushed around a little bit more. Did have a couple nice plays here and there, but for the most part, I thought he struggled to really hold the point of attack. Matt LaFleur did point out his play as of late today, so definitely keep that in mind, and he probably knows a little bit more about the overall level of play of Kingsley Keke than what I do, so definitely take that into consideration as well. But I thought of the defensive lineman, he got pushed around a little bit more than the rest. Number 2, Vernon Scott. There was a cover 2 where, Kevin King probably didn't get back quite enough. I think Vernon Scott also could have played up a little bit, and they Tannehill kind of hit it right in the middle of the 2. Also had a really bad whiff on a potential tackle of Derrick Henry, kind of juked him right out of his jockstrap, if you will. And then on another play, he basically got run over. He still made the tackle while getting run over, but, Derrick Henry, kind of ran right through him on a play. So, not a huge awful game from Vernon Scott either, but a few plays that he would like to have back. And then Chandon Sullivan was my 3rd lowest graded player. Gave up the touchdown in the corner of the end zone, the only touchdown that wasn't the Ryan Tannehill 45-yard run. A couple of blitzes that, he just couldn't make anything of. He did have a pressure a little bit later in the game on a blitz. I thought he tackled a little bit better in this game, took some better angles, was a little bit up and down in coverage, but really the reason that he graded in the negative was the touchdown that he allowed. Ryan Tannehill back of the end zone in, I think it was the second quarter, right before halftime. So Top 3, Kenny Clark, Darnell Savage, Rashawn Gary. Bottom 3, Kingsley Keke, Vernon Scott, and Shannon Sullivan. That's going to do it for me. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure to check out the Pack-A-Day podcast today, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. I'll be right back here tomorrow. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't. And as always, go Pack Go.